democracy now. Yeah, this is the fourth in our series of webinar. Previously, we were talking about celebrating diversity and inclusivity. We have safe democracy and uphold the rule of law. We also talk about fighting corruption and cronyism. And tonight, yeah, we'll be focusing on one of the 5 key points of the People's Agenda. That is to uphold the dignity and quality of life of people. Yeah, and just for information of all the participants, this webinar is our attempt to make sure that more people will be aware about issues affecting our nation and how we can actually reclaim back some of the critical or important aspect of our life, that especially during this coming election. I think our election should be quite near now, and so we like to highlight certain things that our government can look into, or basically our political parties can actually bring up. Yeah, so we'll try to run away from racial and ethnic-based issues, but rather focusing on critical issues affecting people. That is one of the main, reason why we're having this webinar tonight. Yeah. So with us tonight, we have 3 distinguished speakers. Yeah, we are very happy. We have them. The first speaker is Professor Dr. Medaline Berma. Yeah, she is with the Fellow of Academy of Sciences. Yeah, and then she's currently, I think, also a honorary professor of UNIMAS. Just like me, I'm an honorary professor of UMS. So, meaning that we are volunteer there. She was formerly a commissioner of the Human Rights Commission, Suhakam. Yeah, so she is well versed with what she's going to talk tonight. And previously, she was an associate professor at University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM. Yeah, so it should be interesting to hear her views from Sarawak. Yeah, and then of course we have another speaker, Dr. Johan A. Samad, a very well-known guy. Yeah, Dr. Johan. Yeah, he is with me tonight. I'm so happy to have someone beside me to accompany me. Yeah, Dr. Johan was formerly a CEO of the Institute of Development Studies of Sabah, IDS. Yeah, and he was, in the past, he was working with several multinational corporations, including ExxonMobil. So he's well versed with this oil and gas kind of thing. Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about that tonight. Yeah. He also served as a deputy director of Sabah State Foundation, in charge of education, development, and at the same time tasked with spearheading the oil and gas development of the state. Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Johan is a well-known writer. He writes in lots of columns, and his pen name is Joe Samad. Yeah. And he has been contributing articles, all sorts of articles and issues affecting us daily in Daily Express, and also he writes for other news. Most importantly, also, he's a member of the G25. You know what is that G25? They've been very vocal, trying to, advocate for a middle ground and a progressive kind of nation, which is, so we are very happy to have him here also with us.
Thank you.
Now, the third speaker is, of course, you know him, YB, Datu Darell Leiking. Yeah. He's, of course, a politician. You know him. He's with Warisan for a while, and I think he's the deputy now. Yeah. But apart from that, his background is a lawyer. He is member of the Lincoln Inns UK and a state bar since 19 1996. So he's been practicing lawyer for quite some time. Yeah. Now he's a member of parliament for Penampang since 2013, and also elected state assemblyman of Moyog since September 2020. So there you have it. We have three speakers, one academician, one a freelance kind of speaker. We can say anything he wants because he doesn't belong to any particular organization at the moment, but only to his own NGO. And then, of course, we have Darell, that probably you can talk more about in relation as a politician later on. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Medaline has already come up with
sorry.
this.
I thought you have stopped me.
No, not yet.
Okay, sorry.
I'll just introduce. That's the introduction. Right. So we have 2 rounds of talks. Yeah. So I'll just explain to the viewers so that they will know what to expect. So each speaker will be given around 7 minutes. Yeah. Please, I'll inform you to stop after 7 minutes. Yeah. So make it concise. And then the second round also, I'll give you another round, another 7 minutes. And after that, we'll open for Q&A so that all the participants in this webinar can prepare your questions. You can type in so we can have a look at your questions. And then also actually allow you to actually speak up. But all this will be towards the end after they have shared their thoughts with us. So that's how it goes. Very simple. We have 1.5 hours. We should stop around 10 o'clock. Is that right? Okay. So we should not be too long lah. So we will, without wasting time, I think we'll start. I'll start with Dr. Medaline. Yeah. So the question for her will be, what are your thoughts on the state of poverty and standard of public health care in Sarawak? Just focus on Sarawak for now because we need to spend more time now for Sarawak. And has there been enough efforts to reduce the poverty, and is the public health care adequate? How do you see it? Doctor, do you just,
Thank you, Dr. Felix. Can you hear me?
Yes, very loud.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I do, being an academic, I would like to share some graph to answer your question. Since you want me to focus only on Sarawak, so
yes,
because I love to focus on both Sabah and Sarawak. So thank you very much. So I only have like 7 minutes. So
yes.
I can, okay. I'm basically trying to show to us most of this data are very common. Thank you YB, and also thank you. Mana lagi seorang participant tadi dah hilang sudah. Datuk Jo. Okay. So if you talk about poverty, Sabah and Sarawak, everybody knows that. I think all of the participants here are quite aware of the fact that we are. I mean, basically, these are some of the issues that Sabah and Sarawak have basically faced. Yeah? So I would like to just highlight one, what I call the 2 phases of economic growth. And then the other one is slow economic growth, lower income, high incidence of poverty, inequality. So this is where the health issues comes in later, low human capital development, shortage of. So these are issues that have been, it has been going on. I'm sure YB has been listening to this and also discussing this in Parliament, and also many of you are quite aware. But what is most pertinent is that COVID-19 has really highlighted this problem. It really shows to us the extent of this problem. Okay, let me just show to you. These are very common data that many of us, let me just show in how to put it. View, or how do I put this in view in full screen? Okay, so as you can see that the latest data that we have, that I have, accessibility to data is a bit difficult. I'm sure you know that, Dr. Felix. So
yes,
if you can see that, Sabah and Sarawak, we have one of the lowest in terms of, among the low in terms of income. Yeah? If you look at Sarawak here, our median income and mean income is one of the lowest. So of course, we are always behind. Well, there is Kelantan, Perlis, Kedah, Perak, Sarawak. Well, Sabah is slightly higher. So you can be proud of that in 2019. Yeah. Now, let's see in terms of our share. These are all official statistics, you can get this on a Department of Statistics if you're doing a study on poverty or inequality in the state. So if you look at in terms of our contribution, we are the three states that contributed to the national GDP, Sarawak, Pulau Pinang, and Sabah, we contributed, the three states, 72.1%. But in terms of national growth, we are one of the lowest. If you look at Sabah, look at the lowest growth. You look at going to the right side. So 5.8% is basically, this is not the contribution. This is what we call the GDP. But if you look at the in terms of economic growth, Sabah's is negative. That is between 2019 to 2020. So Sabah has negative 9.5 in terms of economic growth. So Sarawak negative 7.1. But in terms of contribution to the national GDP, we contributed 72.1%. But in terms of growth, the economic growth, we are one of the lowest. So these are the two states. So I would like to highlight, although I'm only expected to focus on Sarawak, but how can I leave Sabah? So that's the point that I would like to share. Now, the next thing I would like to share is, of course, poverty. So this is poverty. Absolute poverty is in green. Sarawak 9.0. Sabah is the highest in the country. Now, it is not only the highest. This one, if you look at it, it's a bit difficult to see. But what I can show is with the next data. Look at this. The 4 states that has been vying for the position of the top poorest in the country has been Sabah, Kelantan, Sarawak, and Kedah. If you want to put the top 3 is Sarawak, Kelantan, and Sabah. So the position has never kind of changed. YB, I'm sure you have the data, the old data and the latest data. This data, as I said, we only have until 2020. We don't have the latest data 2022. So 2021 probably is still in calculation. So the poverty, incidence of poverty is not only we are in the top 3, but consistently the 3 states have been vying, or including Kedah, we are consistently in the top 4%. So in the top 4%, the top 4 position, Sabah is really, really very, very high. If you see, in 2020, it's the highest. In 2019, the percentage is 19.6%. Sarawak, yeah, we have improved, but if you look at it, we are still the highest and the top 3. Now, if you look at the annual rate of change incidence of poverty, you can see that incidence of poverty, but this one, the data that I managed to calculate only until 2014. So it is the very, but as I have mentioned, other states have improved a lot. If you look at but Sabah, Sarawak, we only improved like negative 6.87% in terms of our improvement. So what I can tell you in terms of poverty, number 1, Sabah and Sarawak is not only the highest incidence of poverty, but consistently both states have been in the position. Now, when we talk about the next few minutes, if you want to talk about the situation of the health, Felix, although I don't have the data right now, what I can tell you is that during the COVID-19, both states, because I have done also work on COVID when I was the commissioner of Suhakam, what we realized is that, number 1, accessibility to basic health is still far-reaching in terms, because we must remember in Sabah and Sarawak, we must not forget that the states, there are 5, we need to look at it, and not 5, 4. One is what we call the cities. Okay, cities will be Kota Kinabalu, Kuching, these are the cities. These are not really that difficult in terms of accessibility, in terms of basic health. Then we have urban areas, and not forgetting rural areas. But Sabah and Sarawak, and to a certain extent in Semenanjung, we also have the interior. This has often been forgotten. We tend to lump them together as only rural. But in Sabah and Sarawak, we even have areas, areas that are like, for example, in Sarawak, you have to travel like 5-6 days to reach these places. And these are really, really beyond us. If you look at the issues of accessibility in terms of health. Now, the problem in our country is that we have what we call one size fits all. This is what I want to mention, is that we have this policy whereby during the COVID period, during the MCO, the government implemented one size fits all policy, MCO, where they said, you need to have, you need to have to travel during the PKP. You need to have accessibility to go to the nearest hospital and to go to the nearest bank. You need to have access, you need to have documentation. That's when you realize that in order to have access to the documentation, you need to travel to the nearest police station to go to the nearest hospital. And that's where the difficulty, to get access to the hospitals. And in fact, many of our indigenous communities were deprived of their rights to the access to food and also their cultural rights. So I will stop there before we proceed to the next one. So we cannot have that kind of policies, one size fits all. We need to have based on needs and based on the rights of our community. That's all, Felix? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Medaline. So we'll move on to our next speaker. I'll invite Dr. Johan to share with us his thoughts on the state of poverty and also the standard of public health care in Sabah. I mean, you can focus on Sabah, but if you like to also include Sarawak, that's fine. And there are enough efforts to actually address both issues. So all to you,
Okay.
Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Felix. It's nice to be in the studio together with you. I feel at home. And Dr. Medaline, I think we were on a panel before on one of the seminars. So it's nice to see you again.
Yeah.
And of course, YB Darell, so nice to be on the same page with you again. Thoughts about poverty is one of the topics I'm very fond of talking and doing some research. I think Dr. Medaline has already introduced us to the statistical data of poverty, but I think what are the problems with talking about poverty? We always talk in terms of median income. All right. For example, the federal government would say, okay, the benchmark for poverty is probably 2,600 ringgit per month. And when I was at IEDS, we did the research on the ACASI program, which we disputed that the state government probably say, okay, it's not 2,600, but 2,200. So we are playing with figures and all that all the time. But the fact is, what is the situation on the ground when you talk about poverty? And when it comes to Sabah and the 12th Malaysia plan, it's already a situation where 8 of the districts, poorest district, are in Sabah. Okay, so this is statistics that we're not proud of. 8 out of 10 districts in the whole of Malaysia, when you talk about poverty, are in Sabah. Why is that? If you do research on various reports, you read about many of the annual reports published by so many sectors, governments or private sectors. Since 1963, Sabah is the poorest, of course Sarawak included, states in Malaysia. Since 1963, we have not improved at all. Okay, and the rate of poverty growth for the 2 states, Sabah and Sarawak, is the highest compared to other states in Malaysia. And so why is this so? I mean, and if you look at the social media today, all right, every time they will post broken bridges, people can't go to school, lack of medical facilities and all that. We're not talking about median income, all right? Here, we're not talking about 2,200 in rural areas, a pocket, a person's pocket, okay? We are talking about real hardships that they have to face, okay? I have not heard about starvation yet in Sabah, but malnutrition, yes, okay? So when you talk about starvation and malnutrition, to me, it's the same because you're not getting adequate vitamins to maintain your health. Okay, so to me, that is just as good as starvation because you are putting all kinds of food in your body which will not sustain you, and eventually you will die because you don't get the vitamins that you need, and also you don't have access to medical facilities. And today the challenges are different. You know, we talk about education, infrastructure, which is obvious, which the people in rural areas have not been able to reach. But today we have climate change, for example, okay, flooding, okay, and income inequality, and digital divide. These are new challenges, okay, which are not in the poverty situation of discussion in 1963, right? But today, these are the real issues: digital divide, all right, floods occurring in these poor areas. So these are the new challenges that we need to talk about. So we in the 12 Malaysia plan, are we talking about sustainable eradication of poverty? Okay, is it just a political statement that the 12 Malaysia plan, they will say, ministers will say, oh, we will have programs to get rid of people, get rid of poverty in these communities. Okay, this is just a statement, but what is the substance? Have anybody read, what is the actual program to get these people out of poverty? Okay, I mean, what are they offering to these people? Are they offering money, or they offering better infrastructure facilities? First of all, okay, I think most of them have rice to eat. That's for sure. They grow their own paddy, they have rice to eat, but they don't have what you call income or jobs to earn so that they can go to a kedai, for example, to buy salt, sugar, cooking oil, and so on. All right, and these are basic essentials also for sustainable living today. All right, so I think the government has to be more focused on sustainable development and eradication of poverty, and try to speak in a simple language, because 12 Malaysia plan is, to me, very academic. Okay, it's a plan, but what is the plan on the ground to help these people? I mean, are they providing better infrastructure, better schools, better hospitals? Even simple things as bridges and crossing a river, are they providing this? Okay, it's not only when something happens, a bridge collapse, that the local YB will come up with some funds, 100,000 to build them. That is not sustainable at all. That is reacting to situations that's already happening on the ground. So I would like to see more programs, focused programs in eradication poverty in these 8 areas of Sabah. Okay, and we want whoever is in charge to be transparent. I mean, what are they doing to these areas, and how they can to improve the situation? I'll talk about it a little more later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Johan. We'll move on to the third speaker. I'd like to invite YB Dr. Darell to give his thoughts a little bit different on the issues of statelessness, because we are interested, because this is related to all this issue of poverty also, and access to affordable housing. Are there enough efforts to address this, YB? Please.
Thank you, Kotodan, Dr. Felix, Dr. Johan, Dr. Johan, regards. Good, great to see you again. Dr. Medaline, Nama Berita, very good to see you. Okay, can I just touch on something that Dr. Medaline and Dr. Johan raised just now,
Yes,
Dr. Felix?
briefly.
Because it is a subject of interest, poverty. Granted, the data given by Dr. Medaline was something that we've always seen, more so when it is very trite on the contribution of the combined contribution of Sabah, Penang, and Sarawak to the GDP. Yet Sabah, Sarawak, with the exception of Penang, faces 9 of the poorest 10 district in the Federation of Malaysia. So it tells us all when 8 of it, as Dr. Johan pointed out, 8 of it is in Sabah. Someone said to me, who is at fault? I believe those at fault are both the civil service and the politicians in government. It is both. The civil servants, I'm sure there are a lot of brickbats and many will disagree with me, but they have been controlled by the politician and allowed themselves to be controlled by politicians far too long. When the service is theirs, the SKN, the SKN and the SUTs of Sabah and Sarawak, they more so Sabah, where I'll focus on the 8th district, more so Sabah, where they can actually do all the necessary work to ensure that we can not eradicate, but reduce the instances of poverty or unemployment or even unequal distribution of opportunities in their respective districts. If you look at it, in the past, everybody looks at the politicians, more so when they are in the government. Remember, every government member, adunka or parliamentarian, they have allocation. They have allocation given by the government. Now, on top of this allocation, they also have within their control all the agencies, all the sub-government or local authority government in their districts. They have double. They have the allocation from the local authority on top of their government allocation. They can immediately make decision when it comes to immediate access to repairs, bridges or whatever, roads and what have you. But at the same time, they can also give opportunity to people in every district in terms of access to education, access to assistance or health access as well. Always remember, the politicians in the government have allocation, whereas in our case, we are in the opposition. The people expect us to give them the same, but the authorities, the local authorities, refuses to work with us. So that's why there's a high incidence of poverty or unreported poverty, because the civil service is not really going to the ground. If you look at it, the statistics given were by DOSM, at the same time also by some World Bank report. Now, when you talk of poverty, again, like I said, why on earth will Sabah have to face, why on earth does Sabah have to face this, more so with 8 districts, when we are the largest contributor towards the GDP? Going to the subject of statelessness, it's connected. If you look at the problems in Sabah, I don't quite know the problems in Sarawak, but you can go by an answer in Parliament some time ago. Since 2017, right up to 2021, they've only approved citizenship up to 198 new citizens, despite there being thousands and thousands of applications for citizenship. Now, why are we in this situation today when it comes to statelessness? Politicians as well, because most don't want to really touch the subject. Everybody does not seem to embrace the fact that statelessness is something that the country has to find a solution with. The country or the government have to find an immediate remedy, because if we don't, it's going to keep on growing more so in Sabah. You would know, I was just in Lahadatu on the weekend, and there were so many, I don't know if you call them street kids, because they tend to confuse between street kids and stateless people. but there were a lot of children who were seeking help from road users, as you can see also in Sabah and in Kota Kinabalu, but more so in Lahadatu. So if the authorities are not even resolving that and finding a solution for them, how do we even begin to find a solution on statelessness? Now, going on, another more important subject I see is which you gave to me, Dr. Felix, is the affordable housing. This is entire huge problem for the nation, more so, and I focus on Sabah. Sorry, Dr. Medaline, I don't have much talking point on Sarawak, but in Sabah, the cost of construction on all the materials are more higher than Kuala Lumpur, more higher than Sarawak as well. It has something to do with who controls the shipping lane, who controls the supply chain, and what have you. So in the case of affordable housing in Sabah, the excuse given by the government has always been lack of lands. I was just wondering, why are we having lack of lands where there are so many application of lands, government land, that are being approved by the Hasil Bumi, by the government, by the Land and Survey, to individuals or companies. So I don't really believe there's a lack of land, but there's a lack of political will, lack of empathy as well, because the government is supposed to use this land to try and build or try and open it up for affordable housing, and at the same time come up with new solutions like what they've done in other countries. I believe if you talk about buying houses today, it's not that easy, more so in Sabah, because our income is not as high as our neighbors. But what we can probably look at, and one of the things the government should look at, is similar to the the rent and buy schemes that they have. So cost of materials is one of our major problem. How they overcome it, maybe we'll talk about it later. Thank you, Dr. Felix.
Okay, thank you very much, YB. You are right on time. Yeah. So so we'll now go to the round 2. So everyone will be given another 7 minutes before we go and have a look at the Q&A side. Yeah. So we'll go back to Dr. Medaline. Yeah, the question would be a follow-up for the one that I've given you earlier. Yeah. So how can these issues of poverty, as you see it in Sarawak, can be addressed? Yeah, just practical probably suggestion. And what are your recommendations to the government or even to political parties, local political parties, that they could bring up, especially during this coming election? Yeah. You please.
Oh, okay. Thank you, YB, and then Manah, Berita Manah. I have to respond to him in Iban also. Dr. Joe. Okay, thank you very much. I like the fact that you highlighted that poverty is not just an income. It's not just should be measured purely by income. Yeah, people in development, people like us, we have been arguing that one of the challenges faced by Malaysia is that we tend to rely on income poverty. Now, as both of you have rightly mentioned, poverty, although we do have what we call multi-dimensional poverty index, but still it is, it's all things that you can measure. But if you go out on the streets, just now YB was saying, so kids, children. Well, I was, I was in Suakan last year, so we were in the streets of Sabah. So we do see this, and this is what we call. You did mention the word invisible poverty, and many of them you will never capture that, in our statistics. So in fact, if you really want to include this data, I think the incidence of poverty is even higher for Sabah, much higher than what we have here. But because they were not measured and they don't exist in our statistics, that's number one. Now, when you don't exist in statistics, then it's as if that, that they're not poor. Okay, that's number one. Now, coming back to your question, Felix, if you ask me, the most important thing is that I think we have been giving too much we take away the power of the people. The issue of poverty has always been kind of being, in the realm of it's government. It's always about government. We have kind of, the issue of community empowerment. We kind of forget that the people themselves, the rakyat, also have a role to play in terms of poverty alleviation. We cannot eradicate poverty. We need the poor, to vote, actually. So that's the joke. The joke of the day is that we need the poor to vote. Now, if you ask me, number one is that we need to capture. We must give dignity to the community, to the people, like what we are saying. So the politicians have a very important role to play, but the community itself, I think if you look at, I have to refer to our, this is an ethnic issue. Look at our Chinese friends. You see, look at how they address this problem, because they tend not to rely too much on government handouts. You see, we are too dependent sometimes, every now and then, especially after COVID now, everybody is looking for handouts. It's all about handouts. So it's high time. Our people, we are very creative. I find that our people, if you give them a chance, the opportunity, provide them with the opportunity, not handouts. Enough of handouts. Enough of all this moratorium. It's okay for short term, but in the long term, we need to empower the people. So our politicians, but of course, like what YB just now had rightly mentioned, the civil servants also has an important role to play. So now I cannot really differentiate between civil servants and politicians to the point that who is the civil servant, who is the politician. So I do hope that there will be changes in the future. So coming back to my argument, I think we need to recapture voices, give the voices to our people. So, I mean, it sounds like very idealistic, but I really think that it is high time that the NGOs, the community, we empower them. The government should be there to provide a conducive environment, but handout is more than enough. I think we are being too dependent. So to me, number one, government create the conducive environment, provide the necessary, like for example, infrastructure, the right infra to be in place, education, health, and everything else. But to the community, we must empower them, give them the voices. That's all, Felix, Dr. Felix.
Okay, very good. Well said. I totally am in line with you. Yeah, I'll give now a chance to Dr. Joe to probably continue. What are his thoughts on how to go about this issue? Yeah, probably continue from what Dr. Medaline left.
Yeah, I like what Dr. Medaline said. One size doesn't fit all. That's true. I think most of the solutions provided by federal government is one size fits all. Okay, and I agree with Dr. Medaline about empowerment, because every time I'm in the house, my wife talks about women empowerment. So that is in my mind. Empower. Okay, so yeah, I agree with those points. But I think for me also, you have to think outside the box. We are boxed in with the same kind of solution that has not worked since we formed Malaysia in 1963. And if you look at the statistics, it's not going to improve, because the rate of poverty take up in Sabah will be even worse now because of the economic situation, the exchange rate, and so on. The cost of medicine will increase and all that, because a lot of the medicines are imported. And I like to suggest this idea about creating communal villages, okay, new villages, where you can bring all these people together into these villages, where the government provides better hospitals, better schools, and infrastructure, clean water and all that, to generate a new community of people who have accessible to digital network, so that they won't be left behind I think we have to think along those lines, because every solution that we are providing now is just the same solution, which has never worked over the years. And if you look at it, because I'm always looking at social media, what people post in the villages and the rural areas, what are the exact problems? Broken bridges, kids can't go to school, people die, can't go to hospital. And I'm talking to before I came, I talked to Dr. Heng, who's the Mercy Malaysia head in Sabah, and also talked to Dr. Richard Barrow, who has been around since we formed Malaysia. Okay, these two doctors are prominent in helping the community also. But what they're saying to me is the same as before. There's lack of hospital, there's lack of specialists. I think remote areas, for example, Dr. Heng says, okay, if this person walks 2 hours to the community hospital, and he has to do a referral, let's say, come back next month, and I want to see you again. How is that possible? Because he's already probably spent all his money to reach that visitation, and he has to come back next month. So this is the issues that the rural areas are facing, and I would like to suggest, Darell, also that we try to bring back, which Warisan did as a start, to bring back the medical health facilities under the control of the state. This is essential. But I think the mistake with Warisan is that you create a department without funding. It's not good either. All right. So I think also you put somebody, a minister in charge who's not a medical profession, that makes it even worse. I'm sorry to say, but that's a fact. Okay. So I think you should continue, to push that we have our own medical control over here, decentralized medical health facilities to Sabah. I think Sarawak is doing a better job in that area, instituting their rights and demands. I think Sabah has to do the same. Okay, we cannot be nice guys anymore. And I remember the last medical Dr. Michelle Chan, I don't know if you remember, was one of the last Sabahan. And then like last two are Sabahans, which I'm glad to know. But even Dr. Rundi had problems when they, in the middle of COVID, they removed her and transferred her to KL, and which she refused. And even the chief minister of Sabah, I remember, appealed for her to be retained to continue to fight against poverty. I mean, the federal government are senseless. They don't even understand. So I think for us in Sabah, we have to demand now. Okay, stop all this nonsense. Decentralized, like many governments in Canada, USA, Australia. Medical health facilities is decentralized to the states, and I think we should do that. We cannot continue like this. The next 13 Malaysia plan, still Sabah there, poor state, the poorest state in Malaysia. All right, next to Sarawak, all that. So I think we got to one, as I said, think out of the box, build villages with all its facility, move the villages there. They still can maintain the land for agriculture, no problems. But I think the most important thing is that the welfare of the children are taken care of in these areas, in new villages, where they have access to medical facilities as well as educational facilities, and they're not left behind in this digitized world. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Johan. Well said. I'll now ask YB, Darell. Probably you can, continue from what both speakers have left, focusing more probably on our rights in Sabah and probably in Sarawak. And then, of course, how do you look at how you're getting, do you have enough budget? What about MA63? You can talk a little bit about that in relation to how you see the way forward for addressing this, issue of poverty and all these other shortcomings that we have. Please.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you again, Dr. Medaline and Dr. Johan as well. I'll just add up to something. Lubuk Antu is the poorest district in Sarawak, supposedly, right? Of the 10 district. Now, I think Sarawak has found a solution to this. Education is one of their major solution. They've opened up so many international universities, and I believe your premier had promised to fund the education of these children from Sarawak to go into this institution to learn new skills or new subjects, as opposed to the ordinary usual subject as being a lawyer or engineer. They want to go into new type of engineering, not the new type of lawyering, because there's no such thing, I think. So anyways, the Sarawakians have found a solution, and education is definitely one of them. The second one, and interestingly, have you all realized, Dr. Felix, in relation to MA63, during the Pakatan Harapan and Warisan government, we managed to establish the Jawatan Kuasa together with co-chairmanship between the then Chief Minister, or now Premier of Sarawak, Sabah Chief Minister, and the Prime Minister. We've identified 21 issues and had 17 of these 21 issues agreed with the Federal Civil Service and all federal government. Remaining 4. Now, the remaining 4 would have probably changed our trajectory if we managed it well. Now, by having had said that, all 21 are not law as yet. They are still under so-called negotiation, as Dr. Maximus Onkili had confirmed and also admitted, where 15 has yet to be finalized. Strange enough, 17 was already agreed upon, unless the federal civil servants are playing him around. That's another story for another day. That's how they bully you, by the way. The Federal Civil Service bullies our politicians, but we managed to bully them during our time because we were very firm. That's how we got them to agree 17, but unfortunately for poor Dr. Max, I'm not certain what happened with his. Now, the Sarawakians, Dr. Medaline, can I just mention, and Dr. Johan is an expert in this. Production sharing contract was announced sometime in July 2021 between Petros and Petronas. That has never been done before in any of the federation, any state in the federation. Why? Because in 1976, our biggest mistake was to vest our hydrocarbon to Petronas. So what is that power, or what is that contribution in the production sharing contract of oil, of the, towards the discovery of oil and gas in any of the fields in Sarawak by Petros? It is their right over the continental shelf, which is under the 21 issues which we identified. So I suspect when Muhyiddin wanted to become Prime Minister in February 26, 2020, the Sarawakians must have gotten some sort of a policy arrangement with Muhyiddin, where Muhyiddin may have said to the Ministry of Finance, you guys make it a policy that Sarawak can manage all 21 issues identified under the MA63 Jawatan Kuasa or committee. So it may not be law, but what they may have done, I'm just suspecting. How on earth can Petros sign a production sharing contract with Petronas other than the power to manage the continental shelf, allowing Petronas to break their continental shelf to extract the hydrocarbon? So these are one of the subjects or one of the issues we identified where we wanted control back of our continental shelf by the National Security Council decentralizing back to us the management of our seawaters or continental shelf. So I truly suspect the Sarawakian government have all 21 issues as a matter of policy from the federal government, whereas Sabah was not given the same. Now, having had said that, February till September, the state government of Sabah was still led by Warisan. Muhyiddin would never have offered us because there were enough MPs supporting him to become PM from Sarawak. So maybe what we need to do, Dr. Johan mentioned, we need to be firm, we need to be strong. Dr. Felix associated it with MA63, is we should do the same. Meaning, we should ask the current Prime Minister Ismail Sabri to give Sabah that same policy the same 21 issue as a policy pending the conclusion by the federal government and the state governments of Sabah and Sarawak to enact or to make this 21 issue as law. In the meantime, make it a policy because 17 were already agreed. You might as well do the 4 to prepare us when it becomes law. So to resolve Sabah's problem, the MA63, the 21 issues already identified, make it a policy to Sabah pending the amendment, pending the finality of the Jawatan Kuasa 63 led by Maximus and the federal government, and eventually making it into law, make it as a policy to Sabah. Now, can I just answer one question by Mr. Nagia Ramasamy? He is right. A lot of politicians, and I've never thought of being that type, I don't believe in that type, is they don't empower people by giving them knowledge. He asked a question and said, is the argument that politicians want to keep their population with low level of education and in poverty so that they will perpetually be dependent on handouts? No handouts, as Dr. Medaline mentioned. I agree. Every day my office receives requests for donation, from electricity bill to even their flights to KL, and even to, interestingly, their handphones. Medical treatment, the need for wheelchairs, etc., etc. I'm not complaining. I asked for this position to become an elected assemblyman and MP. But what are the authorities doing? I believe we should not make it the government as the final solution, but they have the budget to do all this. Can you imagine every district has a budget from the state government allotted from the budget for that state yearly? Yet, I asked the question this last sitting in the state assembly as to how much were returned from the district to the state treasury. They have not answered me till today. I believe a lot of money are returned every year because they don't know how to spend, or they don't want to spend. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
You're done? Okay, thank you. I think we have completed our 2 rounds, yeah, and we have slightly about half an hour for Q&A, and of course we already have several questions lined. Very interesting. I will just go through it. I think the first one they already asked Dr. Medaline. Can you see the question, Dr. Darell? It says, talking about one-size-fits-all policy, weakness, and how it should be done, and they're asking how should it be done differently, how to overcome that flaw. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Probably they want to hear from you.
Okay. In terms of policy, when we talk about one-size-fits-all, there is a tendency. Like, for example, poverty eradication, poverty alleviation. When we say one size fits all, anything that works in Semenanjung they will assume that it also will work in Sabah and Sarawak. So it's just like a Panadol. You sakit kaki ke, you pening kepala ke, cancer ke, you use Panadol. So similarly, in our case, you look at, like, for example, tadi YB just mentioned about the way we try to solve our problem, even in terms of definition of poverty. You see, number one, definition of poverty, we always use income. We use, like Dr. Joe was saying just now, we always use income. But for Sabah and Sarawak, we need to go beyond income. That's number one, So that's number one. Issue of statelessness, very easy. If you just go out into the street. But in Semenanjung, statelessness or undocumentation is a bit different. Maybe it's mostly found in the estate. But in Sarawak and also in Sabah, and just now YB was asking me, in Sarawak, it's more about undocumentation, whereby the cost of registering, going to the urban, to the Jetnin. So what we need is the kind of solution that we need. You cannot have it for all the 14 states. The same thing. Tadi Dr. Joe, you mentioned about village. In Semenanjung, they have that for the orang asal, the orang asli actually, where they resettled them and everything. I'm not too sure whether I would go for that kind of approach, although it's good to have it, having them to be resettled and things like that, because it doesn't really work in Semenanjung. We look at the orang asli, the resettlement of the orang asli. So I think I'm not too sure. It sounds really, it's something worth exploring. But the failure, like many of them suggested that maybe Sabah or Sarawak, we have a Jabatan Orang Asal, just like they did for Jakwa in Semenanjung. But I'm really against it, because if they had been successful in Semenanjung, the Orang Asli would not have been where they are now. So please don't come up with that kind of idea. So on that ground, I do agree that we should not have a similar approach. Yeah? Okay, coming back to the one size fits all, what it means is that what works for the Malays in Semenanjung does not necessarily work for the Malays or even the Bumi Putra or the Bunyi Putra in Sabah and Sarawak. I always use the term Bunyi Putra because Sabah and Sarawak also, we are Bumi Putras, but look at the status of the Bumi Putras in Sabah and Sarawak. We are considered as Bunyi Putra rather than Bumi Putras and like the Malays in Semenanjung. So similarly in terms of our education system, we think that when we have the policies on education and also in terms of health study, policies that requires them, you cannot travel. Remember at one time, I think a Sabahan was fined more than 1,000 ringgit for crossing the border just because he was looking for food for his family. So we use that kind of policy for Sabah and Sarawak, where the interior, I'm not too sure whether the virus were even penetrating, the COVID was even out there in the interior, but we use the same kind of policies that prevent them from, traveling. Even, some of them even have the Rumah Panjang is just the opposite of the river, where the paddy fields are just across. But even then, they were so frightened, they cannot even cross to plant food, to search for food. But because we have that one size fits all policy, so it affects everyone in the country. So that's basically what I want to share. Yeah, Felix.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just
probably
cut in?
yeah, you can,
Felix,
please.
regarding the villages resettlement I was proposing, the difference between us and Orang Asli and Peninsular Malaysia is our land size, which is always a drawback. So we can complain, in remote villages and all that, we don't have facilities. But when you remember our land size, we have different challenges compared to them. So I think it's worth thinking about it, how we can gather all these people in one place and where we can give them better facilities. That's my comment.
Okay.
Okay, very good. I'm looking at some other questions from Facebook. This is to Dr. Johan. They said, can you elaborate more on the nature or the form of decentralization that may work better for East Malaysia? Yeah. Elaborate more. Yeah.
I got a YB in front of me I'm looking at, so how shall I answer this, Darell? But I think there are many articles written on this decentralization, and I think I don't want to puji Warisan, but they made some effort, I would say, in the 21 points that they proposed. And if I can recall, like fisheries, forestry, or even oil and gas, okay, the last 4 points, how to decentralize some of these powers from the federal government, and especially in oil and gas, because Darell brought it up. I can comment, because when I go on Facebook or WhatsApp and I puji Sarawak, and I always puji Sarawak, because they have taken the reins of the oil and gas back into the hands. And why we talk about oil and gas? Because it's an example of decentralization. And if you talk about the start of it, it could be the sales tax issue, where the former Prime Minister Moyog considered, to me, was a political settlement. It's not a legal settlement. All right, and I think we have to be cognizant of that. And because of political settlement, Petronas were forced to accede to the state law that the state has the right to impose a sales tax. And of course, Sabah benefited from that. And that's why we're earning something like 1.2 billion a year now from the sales tax alone, which is 50% of the revenue from the oil and gas. And if you talk about oil royalty or the state revenue, it's 25%, and then 25% comes from the sales tax, which is quite significant, right? The rest are oil palm and so on. So they've taken control over the licensing. And if Petronas want to operate in Sarawak now, they have to obtain licenses, okay? And they use the state ordinance over land, minerals, and all that to impose these things. And Darell mentioned a PAC production sharing contract, where they are actually participating now in exploring and producing oil and gas. So Sarawak has made significant progress. And they're also blessed with hydropower and all that, so they can fuel more industries in the area from Bakun and so on. And we're also buying electricity from them. So, I mean, the oil and gas is a very good example of how Sarawak managed to get the decentralization powers despite the PDA Act 1974, which gives Petronas almost everything related to oil and gas to the federal government. And if you look at it, every year dividends are 25 billion, or they double it, 50 billion, depending on the oil prices at the time. And then none of it goes to Sabah. All right, but we are the producing states, Sabah and Sarawak. The federal government does not share any of that additional oil revenue for Sabah and Sarawak. But people forget, okay, it's not only the dividends from the oil and gas, they also get money from the tax. Okay, don't forget that tax. Petronas is a corporate body also, and where they earn, I don't know what's the tax rate now, 25 or 40%. Yeah. Anyway, but it's a huge chunk also. And so this is a good example of how we decentralize. I mean, medical and education is the two areas that we should ask for decentralization. It's not that hard. A lot of education department heads today in Sabah are headed by Sabahans, okay, who are well trained, who are well educated, okay. In the medical field also, there are challenges also, because we have lack of doctors and so on. Maybe we need a bit of more help in that direction. But I think if you talk about one size fits all, like Dr. Medaline talking about, for Sabah, we need to take a different approach, okay, when it comes to medical facilities, because of the lack of doctors, lack of facilities, and so on, in remote areas, as I mentioned earlier. So, but decentralization is the first step. I mean, our medical director now is a Sabahan. Okay, if she was given the powers to say where medical needs are needed most in Sabah, she would know, as opposed to the Khairi Jamaluddin who sits in KL, who knows nothing about the situation on the ground here. All right, very, very smooth talking minister. I like it, you know, but when it comes to delivery for Sabah and Sarawak, I think it's questionable still. Okay, so let's work on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to add on that, YB Darell?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Felix. Dr. Johan, if you don't mind. Yes, we started the Ministry of Education, State Ministry of Education and State Ministry of Health, and we aligned it together with the 21 issues where the decentralization, along with fiscal decentralization, would have been given to Sabah and Sarawak. On top of that, the title deeds that were to be given to all hospitals as well as schools in Sabah were also stopped by our side at that time, because we wanted it to go to the State Ministry of Education and Health, because we believe that with the money that we would have received from the state sales tax as well as eventual control of our continental shelf, as well as the federal obligation on education and health, would eventually pay for all the upkeep as well as the staffing of the Ministry of Health and Education at the state level. Interestingly, the Sarawakians, again, started all this during the late Adnan Satam's time, where he blocked Petronas from bringing in workers from outside of non-Sarawakian management, as well as middle level, right up to logistics during his time. But he went quiet for a while, if you noticed, because I think he made a deal again to make Petronas train top level, middle level, right up to logistics, who are all Sarawakians. When Abang Jo took over the chief ministership, he managed to make all the Petronas Sarawak, as well as Shell Sarawak, Halliburton, and all the other oil and gas companies in Sarawak into fully Sarawakian, because he challenged Petronas and said, hey, you've trained them already. Why can't you give them these posts that are now vacant? Meaning the Sarawakians are now in control. Going back to Khairi. Khairi answered a question in Parliament last year when I asked him about PET scan, the scanning method, the scanning machine that detects your cancer, the cancer in your body. There's not even a single PET scan in Sabah. He agreed. There's none. We only have pap smear, we only have CT scan, but not a PET scan. So where do Sabahans go? If they can afford it, they'll go to KL. If they can't, they go to Sarawak, because Sarawak has one PET scan private hospital. But I read somewhere the Sarawakian premier said they're going to buy more PET scan for their Sarawakians. I mean, that's interesting if that's the case. Sabah should be able to spend all this. Again, it goes to the value that Dr. Johan said. Decentralization is core. But the problem is, even if we decentralize to Sabah or Sabahans, what if our Sabahan politicians are still the same? Corrupted, they abuse the thing, and they find excuses after excuses. So you have to find and build, or you have to build new character. Not characters who are just going to make you stupid. They don't want you to learn. They don't want you to have access to new knowledge. Dr. Medaline, you're right. We can't depend on government wholly. I agree. No one's policy fits all, definitely. But we have to have a government that is able to think of the future. Education. That is the key to change our poverty. In fact, even to resolve our statelessness, because we have to tell people the difference between being stateless doesn't mean you're from the Philippines or Indonesia only, or heritage from Indonesia or Philippines. But Sabahans or even Sarawakians way in the interior who are not citizen till today, because the authorities did not go to them to register them because of the, like Dr. Johan mentioned, the sheer distance and size of our state. But is that not what the authorities were supposed to do? They were supposed to go to the interior. They were supposed to emplace people at every hospital or rural clinics to make sure that there's a record of birth. Our ordinance in Sabah is the registration of birth ordinance. I think you have the same in Sarawak. We should take control of this from the federal government. Decentralization should have included this as well. Of course, during our time, I didn't think of it when we were formulating the 21 issues, but now we need to go back to this situation where we should manage our registration of birth. Again, it is open to abuse, unfortunately. If you have people who are still thinking of earning money from this type of obligation, then that's another problem that we're going to face. Because if I read the cases of the past, there was even a girl from Penampang who was registering illegally birth certificates for people, and she was put to jail. And she's from Kibambangan, just for your knowledge, Dr. Felix. So, yeah, she was put to jail because she registered close to 300 over people using the late registration of birth. I don't know whether the government withdrew this late registration of birth at the end, but if they did not, can you imagine there's 300 over people who were illegally registered? That power is still in the state, under the courts in Sabah, under the level of the magistrates court, but there was an abuse even by a Kadazan girl. That's what I'm trying to say. Abuse. We have to teach people to stop thinking of earning money this way, but work for the money. Thank you.
Can I just quickly add something to follow up with Darell? Because Darell, several times you mentioned about if we have the same leaders, we're in trouble. Okay. I've been suggesting in my article so many times that we should set up a sovereign fund. Okay. And a good example, now we got 1.25 billion sales tax, okay, which is additional, which you never had before.
Doctor, can I just intrude? The sales tax was amended in April 2019 by the then Chief Minister Shafi Abdal. Of course, eventually the benefit was under the government who took over in September 2020. But can I just revert to Muhyiddin settling?
Hold on, can I finish first? Because there's no doubt about that. I mean, that happened during Warisan's time and all that. But my point, okay, is what we do with the windfall tax, sales tax, as well as the 40% revenue that we're going to have. I don't know how much is that. It's still being debated whether we're going to have it or we don't have it. But the point is here is that what have the Sabah state government done after receiving that sales tax? Okay, did they increase the YB salary? All right. I mean, it's in the newspapers, right? The first thing they did was to increase the salary of all the YBs and ministers. Now, I mean, that is ridiculous that you got this sales tax and yet every day people posting broken bridges, schools leaking and all that. What happened to the 1.25 billion or whatever the sales tax we received so far? That's additional fund in your pocket. Who's keeping it? How is it being spent? I mean, they should be transparent, but this money you never had before. All right. And then the next thing you do is to increase your YB or minister's salary. That's shameful. All right. You're not being honest to the people of Sabah. All right. Let's stop this nonsense. All right.
I agree. I'm a beneficiary of that increase as well. Increase mine to 2,000 over ringgit. But I will find no excuses for that. But they increased the chief minister and the minister by a large number. More than 6,000-7,000. So that we have to look at. Doctor, they should put it under a sovereign wealth. Okay, I understand that the best scheme is actually to create new type of ventures or new type of investment for Sabah. But again, we need to train our people to manage it well. We've seen how an MDB was sovereign wealth, like one MDB was abused. We've heard of other sovereign wealth that are not performing well. But Sabah, yes, we will have consistent income just as Sarawak. You'll be in a region of about 1.2 to 2 billion probably yearly, or even annually. Quarterly, we'll have probably a couple of 100 million to a billion. With the price of oil and gas going up, I like to look more at gas, by the way. Gas, I think, is the better bet than oil. There's a company that you have to go and check, Dr. Medaline and Dr. Johan and Dr. Felix and all those participating. It's called Safran Malaysia. Safran Malaysia extracts carbon bricks in Negeri Sembilan from gas. They contribute to almost 70% of the world's aircraft carbon brick. Just imagine in Negeri Sembilan, they're producing close to 70% of the world's carbon brick from gas. And that's from Terengganu, the gas from Terengganu. Can you imagine if that gas is in Sogip or even in Bintulu? The federal government will never give it to us, by the way. Of course, I got to know this when I was in MITI, and I tried to bring that particular investment to Sabah, but they've already heavily invested into Negeri Sembilan. So there are other things that we can do. Hydrogen investment in Sarawak has something to do with discussions with us in Sarawak then. The EV battery in Sabah, SK Group, was also part of our investments that we brought. So there are a lot of things Sabah and Sarawak can do, but I think Sarawak is well ahead of us, unfortunately. Are you aware, Dr. Johan? They have a 200-acre, likely cloud facility center. You're going to store cloud data for all of Southeast Asia in the near future. That is what, one of your investors came in to see me some time ago. 200 acres, including online education. So Sarawak has quite a bit of a leapfrog compared to us. But we will catch up with you all sometime soon.
Yeah.
Okay, YB.
Sorry to interrupt you just now.
I like to open now probably some more other pressing questions from the audience or from the panel. Are there anyone who wants to? I saw Francis lifting his hand just now. Do you want to ask questions, Francis?
Sorry, Dr. Felix, can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm opening now for further questions from the participants. I saw one hands up from Francis. Do you want to ask question, Francis?
No, yeah. I'm just, if we are talking about decentralization, I'd like to suggest that we take it down to the next level, which is to the level of local government. And we started off this whole political process in Malaysia at the point of independence with actually local government. And actually that power, which was very close to people, it was a local government which knew about local problems, has been actually over time usurped by the people on top. And now we are complaining that they have taken that power away from us. So I think that it's extremely important for us to begin to push for decentralization, not just to the state level, but actually to yet another level, and demand also for the return of local government elections. And I think, Medaline, you are already talking about this just now. You're talking about how do you empower the local communities.
Mhm.
And in a sense, it comes with actually consolidating local government, making local government, participatory, making local government elected, making local government responsible for delivering all these services. And I think, because the state levels, you talk to all the Sarawak friends, they don't want decentralization to Sarawak anymore because it will be just snapped up, it will be seized by all the big Ikayu. It's not, they will take everything and then there's nothing left for the people at the bottom. It's still ikan bilis, nothing. Same old problem. But we are talking about actually taking it to yet another level. The world over, including our neighbors, as I was writing there, Indonesia and the Philippines, you actually have decentralization now doing extremely well at the local level. And Jokowi, as I mentioned, he started off as a solo furniture shop man. And then he became governor of Jakarta. He contested for governorship. And then finally, the civil society said, Pak Jokowi, marilah, we go and fight for the big pudding. And finally, they did that. And Duterte is not a great example, but he also started, because of decentralization, began to start at that level. I think this is extremely important. In Berma, where I'm doing work now, actually, the whole, the military has taken over Naypyidaw and all the big cities. But at the local level, you actually have ordinary people beginning to take over control from the military. So it's I think we talk about thinking out of the box. This is one way to think out of the box. Don't just talk about federal-state relations and, of course, they are going to bully you. They've been bullying all of us too. In Semenanjung, they bully you, you are further away, bully you even more. But I think the way to beat them is to actually take it down. And don't wait for the next step to empower people. We empower it right now. And in Penang, we have already got decent state government and all that, but we are not happy with that. We want to take it down. We want to take it down. And we have already passed a law to bring back local government elections. But federal government say, tak mungkin. Tak mungkin. They don't want to allow for that. Anyway, that's my sharing lah.
Thank you very much.
Geram sikit.
Semangat. Okay. Anyone else from the our participants who wants to probably ask questions or comments? We give you opportunity now. we have another 10 more minutes actually. So we'll end up around 10 o'clock. So before we wrap up, but I like to hear some more from our participants.
Hi, Faza here.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I've been talking about not just empowerment of the people, but I think women empowerment or the lack of it reflect the actual situation of a state, especially in Sabah, Sarawak. Now, as we know, the voters, it's not 100% towards the current state government. So I'd like to know what the speakers think, how they can actually help to change the mindset of the people, because it's quite safe to say you have 40% of the voters, or perhaps even just 30%, the voters support. What can you do to help change the mindset, empowering them, give them the sense of confidence to think for themselves instead of just relying on, like Dr. Medaline says, handouts, because the handouts are like the drugs that have been pushed to the people, that made them become addicted to them. And in fact, until they felt that they're entitled to it, entitled to the handouts. And local government is one thing, but if the people themselves are fighting against the power that they can have in their hands, how do you solve the issues? That's one thing. And talking about education, Sabah, Sarawak is doing a good job, but Sabah, we've been spending billions, I would say, of the people's money, the state's money, sending students out of the state. Such a shame, because you never actually empower yourselves by building the education system in the state. And University Malaysia Sabah is not even owned by Sabah. And you've got massive land there that's controlled by the power that be in West Malaysia. Why can't we be like Sarawak, where they've got all the twinning programs? You don't need to have huge universities, but the quality is what makes a difference, so that our people do not have to go out and they have more access to education. So, I mean, how can the politicians themselves, who've got at least 30% of the support of the people, help changing the mindsets from now? I have heard, some politicians telling me that, oh, every time I go out, people expect me to give them something. And I said, then don't, because you're just going to be one of the pushers.
Okay. Thank you for that comments and probably question. I'll probably ask Dr. Medaline to respond to that empowerment issue of women. Can you do a quick one on that?
Okay. Oops. Hold on. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Azza. I think her name is for that question. We talk about woman empowerment. I mean, to me, regardless of male or female, the issue of being the concept of empowerment for me, like if you look at our rural communities, of course, women needs to be empowered, because I've been doing a lot of work on with women. So if you empower a woman, it is about a family. So that's very important. Look at Dato' Joe just now. She remembered what his wife was talking about. So number one, the NGOs need to play a very, very important role. Number one, Okay, we need more women NGOs, not because a lot of NGOs have a very well, NGOs have a very important role to play, you know, because they are the what we call the third or the fourth sector in the economy. So now we need to have this not just the what we call the triple helix. Now we have the quadruple helix. We need to have the government, the private sector, the NGOs, and the community. So I strongly believe that government, yes, that you have a very important role to play, Wabi Darell. But I think it's high time that we don't allow government to have so much power to the point that the people have been deprived of it. I mean, I look at the rural community. I like the local government things now. Francis, I totally support you, but I think it will still be quite a long way to go for us to have election. So yes, empowerment with NGOs' role and the community themselves. Education is very important. I must salute the state government of Sarawak, but we still have the highest number of Sekolah Daif in Malaysia, given the fact that we have lots and lots of money, yet we are still number 3 in terms of poverty. So how do we explain that? That can be related to the ikan yu that Francis was talking about. Okay? So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Dr. Medaline. We'll be running out of time soon, but I'd like to give 2 of our speakers some more 1 or 2 minutes to say their last piece also on this issue. We'll start with probably Dr. Johan. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, it was a good discussion. I think we got Dr. Medaline, who's academic, and YB Darell from the political side, and I'm just independent commentator, free to give my opinion. I think I would like to see poverty eradicated from our conversation altogether, because every time we sit together, when you talk about MA63, we talk about Sabah Sarawak rights, poverty comes up. And I tell my friends in Semenanjung, I said, why are we, after 59 years in Malaysia, still the poorest state? And they don't really care because it doesn't affect them. Okay, but we care because we live in this state, we live in this society or community. So it's something that I don't want to be, as a Sabahan, to say that I come from the poorest state of Malaysia. All right, I want to. That is something to, yeah, not something to be proud of. And why are we in this paradox? The richest state in Malaysia, but also the poorest state in Malaysia. That paradox I cannot understand. And obviously the biggest issue is Petronas, okay, who controls everything. And I think when you talk about decentralization, I think the first company to be decentralized in Malaysia is Petronas, and to give us back our rights to the continental shelf and a fair share of revenue, not this handout of cash of 5%. And when you see the federal government getting 50 billion or more every year, and then wasted on 1 MDB, leakages here, left and right, and all that, I think if you just take about 10% of 1 MDB and go to the 8 rural areas, which is a poorest state in Sabah, and make some improvements, I think it will make a lot of difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last word from our YB before we actually, end up this.
Okay, thank you, Ketua Dan, Dr. Felix. I just want to answer a question by my friend Marcel Arnold on the question of how much the state had received on the Sabah sales tax. A reply given to me by Masidi Manjun sometime this year was Sabah state government had received 2.45 billion since April 1st, 2020 until July or June 2022. So 2.45 billion. That should have gone to a consolidated fund or sovereign wealth that they should have set up. Okay, anyways, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of our, comments and opinions on the subject matter. In fact, we did not dwell too much on my subject, so strangely, statelessness and affordable housing. But when it comes
Next time.
but when it comes to, I myself I enjoyed the subject Dr. Johan and Dr. Medaline had. Sorry to intrude on that as well. Now, holding the dignity and quality of life of our Borneo people, Sabah and Sarawak, is to give them education, equal access to education. In fact, I would go the Sarawak way. I don't mean to glorify Sarawak or admire them too much, okay? But they know how to manage their state. It could be because, Dr. Medaline, there has been no national party in your government ever. So the thinking has always been Sarawak, Sarawak, Sarawak. Now for Sabah, we need to change the way we think. We need to work for Sabah now. So Sabahans must be for Sabah. Not a parochial thinking, but Sabahans must work for Sabah. So it includes Sarawakians who are already here. It includes West Malaysians who are already in Sabah and feel that they are Sabahans. Now we must seize this opportunity. We must bring in equal opportunity in education. And I would hope, among others, the 2.45 billion received by the state government today should go towards reinventing. They say don't recreate a new wheel, but reinvent Yayasan Sabah University by making it into a pure technical vocational university. At least we can prepare ourselves when the whole entire 21 issues on the MS63 are fully implemented and become law, so that we can provide the skills that are required for our state in terms of oil and gas technology and the gas exploration technology, which I think Sabah has a lot to venture into. Now, education, empowerment by decentralizing. Correct. Francis mentioned something of interest, a subject I was quite interested years ago. The late Habibie, President Habibie came up with autonomy daerah. So this is something that probably Sabah needs to look into, like how how Indonesia did it 20 over years ago. So autonomy daerah, in our case, we get our decentralized or devolution of all our powers back to Sabah first, then we show them the way. But we need political leaders who, the word out of the box is so used up and abused. We should actually have disciplined people, new type of leadership that are not corrupt, that abhors and hates corruption. Corruption at all levels, including civil servants. Stop protecting our relatives, our friends who are corrupt in the civil service, or politicians that we know who are corrupt. No more protecting your family or friends just because they're families while they are corrupt. Make it shameful for them to be corrupt. I think Sabah can be resolved if we stop corruption or reduce corruption. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think due to time constraint, promise that we'll stop around 10 o'clock. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thanks all the speakers. They were like very, I think, excited about the whole thing, and there's semangat lah. I like it. And yes, we should always remember that the whole thing has to start from the bottom, and I think we had that today. That community empowerment, local government will have to play a more stronger role in this, because we cannot rely totally on the government, as you have said just now. So I think, but at the same time also, we have to understand that government must, give us the best, not anything less. I think that's so that we can actually uphold our dignity, and we can actually make sure that the livelihood, well-being of people will be much more better. Oh, okay. They're not hearing me anyway. Sorry about the mic. I think I've been talking about other things. So I think we'll probably end here. So I hope more people, especially those in this webinar will continue to actually support this people's agenda. So we would like to reclaim as common people, not relying too much on the government or whoever is in power now, but to reclaim our rights. And I believe that we have done it before, and we can reclaim it back and probably get our power back and be a more democratic and more, a caring society and a country. Yeah. So again, thank you to all the three speakers and to all the participants tonight. I think we'll end our meeting tonight. Once again, thank you.
Good night.
And bye-bye and good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
YB.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Felix.
Jo.
Can we take a group
Tawadan.
photo? Group
Thank you.
photo.
Oh, you did a good photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be taking that. Can you open? Oh, okay. Sorry. Forgot about the group photo. Excited.
Medaline.
Can you all try to open your camera if you want to? If you can, but of course, yep. More coming out now. Good.
2 pages.
2 pages. Okay. Who will be taking this? Anil? Aliran. Okay. Can you take the photo?
Thanks, Anil.
Page 1. Okay. And page 2.
Page 2.
Okay, you're done? Okay. Okay, we're done. Nothing.
All right.
Okay, again, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye. See you again in
Okay.
next webinar series.
Medaline, you remember me? I met